The next format in which VGC tournaments will take place on has been announced, and with that, we are heading back to Regulation F. Now, as you guys can see here in front of you, Play Pokemon tweeted out over the weekend that Regulation Set F returns to Pokemon VGC battles between essentially December 1st and March 31st of 2026. Now, unfortunately, the biggest takeaways from this is one, we are not going back to Regulation C. I'm actually quite sad. I thought Reg C with DLC moves would have been a really, really fun format. It would have been a bit different to what we played before. But alas, we are going back to Reg F, which means we kind of do know what is good, and we will touch on some usage stats as we go later on into the video. But one of the major things, and we do see it here in the top comment here as well, is that Pokemon Champions likely will be official, or the mainstay in competitive as of April 1st, which is really funny, but I mean, it's pretty typical, I guess, at this point that we always get a new format on April 1st. But yeah, so unfortunately, it does mean that Champions won't be the mainstay for us and for at least another, 6 months roughly. But in saying that, I do believe that Champions will release before then. I am assuming at this point it's probably going to be a Pokemon Day release because they need to give us time to actually play the game. I'm assuming like all items and stuff like that are going to need to be unlocked. So to me, it makes a lot of sense that a minimum 4 weeks is given to us to say, hey, here's the game, play any potential story in the game, play the game, unlock items, go from there. And we'll kind of touch on Champions shortly as we go on, a little later on in the video. But yeah, at this stage, it looks like it's potentially a Pokemon Day release. So that's, yeah, it's kind of sad. It's a bit later than I would have liked, but I mean, at least we know now April 1st is when we will be officially moving to Champions. And also too, I guess, guys, if you are playing any of the events here, I was looking through this earlier. We do have one GC in January, which will be obviously on Regulation F. That's the Grand Challenges. I think the Global Challenge, so yeah, the Global Challenges as well have not been announced yet. They're likely going to be every month as well between January and May. So Feb, March, April, we'll all probably get one. And I think that'll be it, right? I think we only get 3. So unfortunately, it looks like we'll probably get 2 at least. Sorry, it'll be 3 on Reg H, Reg F, and then 2 on Champions. But that is what it is. There's a bunch of other events here. I'm hoping the Australian one does fall after April, but there's some events here in LATAM. You see here we got 1, 2, 3 at a bare minimum that will be on there. We also have in Europe, right? We have another 2 there. In the US as well, we have another 3, and then Orlando as well, actually. Again, going back to this date here, April 4th could be the very first Pokemon Champions event, right? So Wolfglick could go back, defend his title, which would be really, really fun. And then also, yeah, none of the nationals have been announced yet. And then EUIC, of course, will also be on Regulation F. Now, again, just kind of touching on this format, there's a few things I wanted to talk about, right? Because I've heard quite a bit of conversation, obviously, over the Pokemon, right? If you have a look at this, I'm just on Pokemon Champions here. When you talk about the Pokemon that are obviously allowed now, the Pokemon that are banned, it's just the restrictors, right? So we're going back to having things like Raging Bolt, right? We're going to have Flutter Mane, Urshifu. They're all coming back, in their own way. And again, I was at the Brisbane Regionals over this weekend. There was a bit of discussion about it with some of the boys. And there was quite a few things I heard, right? I heard people saying Bolt Balance is going to dominate the format again. I heard people saying Bolt Balance is overrated. People forget it wasn't actually as good as they think it was. I heard people saying Flutter Mane is overrated. Oh, Flutter Mane's actually not that good in Reg F. And I kind of just want to show you guys the 2 major tournaments we had before, right? So on Top Cut Explorer here, we have the Orlando Regional Championships. And again, you can see Bolt Balance didn't win this. This was the infamous Wolfglick beating Neil in the finals, where Neil probably had the game won, didn't, and then we never saw Neil again after this one. But yeah, no, this was again a tournament that was obviously quite big. I think this was like an 800 player tournament. And you can see here, right? Again, talking about people saying Flutter Mane wasn't that good in this format. Orlando, I believe, was, if we just go back to this one here, we can see Orlando was like the last major tournament of Reg F. The Sao Paulo regional here only had about 200 players. Orlando had like 860 off memory. And you see here, day 1, Flutter Mane, the king of the format. And then day 2, it was still sitting at 42%. So it had a pretty solid conversion rate, considering. So yeah, it's one of those things where a lot of people were saying like, oh, Flutter Mane's not that good in this format. Like, no, it's still really good. Even if we have like a look at EUIC where it was a little worse, like Flutter Mane being worse was like 43% here. Into day 2, 32%. So like it was still on 1/3 of teams. Like it's crazy to me that people are saying this Pokemon was bad in the format. But I did kind of just want to mention that. And then also as well, Raging Bolt, right? Again, that's the talk of the town. A lot of people saying Raging Bolt, Bolt Balance was really good. Bolt Balance obviously was fantastic, and I do think it was very meta defining. But the big thing with Bolt Balance is it didn't really actually win much, right? Like if you even, you look at EUIC here, you've got Nils Dunlop beating Bolt Balance. And then, of course, even at Orlando as well, right? We had Wolf Click beating Bolt Balance. So Bolt Balance was fantastic. Even here at Orlando, right? You see like what? There's like 2 Bolt Balances in top 8. And then EUIC, how do we go here? We got 1, 2, 3. Are they even Bolt Balances? Yeah, they kind of look like, what's that? 4? Is it 4 Bolt Balances? Yeah, 4 Bolt Balances. I mean, that's a bit different. EUIC having 4 Bolt Balances actually in the top 8 is kind of crazy. But yeah, this format, it's really, really interesting. I'm curious to see how it kind of develops, because if you look at Regulation H at the end of 2024, it's very different to what we had now, right? For example, again, I played Perth over the weekend. The Lele team that just dominated the format is completely different to what we saw at the end of last year. So I am really interested to see where, I guess, this year goes, or this next period, right? Because one thing for me, right, I was on the way home from Brisbane. I was in the airplane talking to one of the homies, and we were just kind of theory crafting, like looking at some stats. And the first thing I thought when I looked at this was, god damn, Farigiraf looks really good against a lot of these Pokemon. And it's true, right? Like when I think about something like Bolt Balance, where you're talking about something like Rillaboom, Incineroar, Raging Bolt, they all click priority moves. And I don't see, Farigiraf anywhere here. Like obviously, we see things like Goldango kind of slipping in here. We see Landorus Incarnate being like super highly used just because of Raging Bolt. Obviously, Chien-Pao really good into Bolt as well. And again, you kind of see it in their conversions rates, right? So you see here in day 1 of Orlando, Chien-Pao's that's sitting at 9th, and then on day 2 it sits at 5th usage. I mean, Fluttermane obviously still is one of the best answers. Obviously, Assault Vest and Calm Mind can kind of mitigate the damage coming out of it. We also see Goldengo in day 2, and a big reason why Goldengo was good was because in this format, Regibolt loved Terra Fairy, right? And so just having the option to have something like, Goldengo, where maybe use that Fluttermane to bait out the Terra, and then Goldengo can kind of nuke it in the back, is very, very good. Yeah, it's just kind of, I think a lot of people forgetting how this format really kind of panned out. Like, again, you look at EUIC, this thing's on 47% of teams on day 2. Clearly incredibly good. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be really interesting. We see Goldango again, man. This one was kind of a sleeper pick, which is kind of crazy, because if you've been playing Regulation F, you know that this is probably the king of the format. Also, like, no bears, like, outside of the Shifus. Like, we do see both Single and Rapid being, like, really good here, but neither of the Ursalunas are here. And that's like another big thing as well, because I mean, this new Lele team, right, with like Calm Mind Bear, like I think Calm Mind Ursa probably beats Calm Mind Bolt in a straight 1v1. Like one has to Terra, one doesn't. And then even then they both kind of like Terra Fairy in this format, because like it matches up really well into Shifu. So I'm really interested, I guess, to kind of see how this format starts to develop, man. Like again, I was personally not excited. I was on the side of Regulation C is king, but I don't know. Now that I'm looking back at this, I think a lot of things are going to change. I think Fluttermane usage is probably going to spike. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some cool setup, variants as well, where people go for things like Terra Grass Fluttermane again with like Grassy Seed plus Calm Mind, right? Like that was a set we saw, I think, early in the format that it kind of disappeared, but like, Calm Mind plus double stab with Grassy Terrain, Grassy Seed plus Terrain, like seems kind of good. Of course, Landorus right now is the king ground type, but I would not be surprised if we see some, like, again, the Bears are a bit tricky because the Bears do have, like, a poor matchup into the Urshis, but they're both, like, if you can kind of get them in the right spot, whether that be Trick Room or something like that, they can do a lot of work. And also the Turbo Bears aren't bad as well, right? Like, because, again, we've seen those Turbo Bears. You can go to max speed Bears. You can outspeed things like the Urshifus. So, again, it's going to be really, really interesting to see kind of, I guess, how it all plays out. And before we wrap it up, there was one other thing I wanted to discuss here, and that is Regulation J. And the reason I want to discuss Regulation J is because of this right here. We can see Regulation J officially ends January 4th, 2026. Now, the reason this is important is because the timeline really doesn't match up at all with Regulation F coming back, right? So there's a few different ways to look at this, right? So I think there's always the chance that we just have Regulation F from, January 5th through to April 1st. That's probably the most likely scenario, and honestly, that's what I want, at least in like on the cart ladder, because I'm not gonna lie, it sucks having to prep for these Regulation H tournaments and not having Regulation H ladder, because I think it's really important. Like once your team is good to go, you play on cart, because it's just the prep is different, right? Like prepping on Showdown versus on cart, like to me, it's a completely different game. Like on Showdown, it's like you're skipping moves, you're turning on time, you're doing all this dumb bullshit, yeah. Where on cart, you're forced to take longer. You got to sit there and watch animations for 30 seconds. During that time, you can think. So I personally think it's a lot better prepping on cart. But what it also kind of means, in my opinion, is there is still that chance that Champions is a January release. Now, do I think it's really weird that Champions might drop in January and might not become official until April? Like, yeah, kind of. But also at the same time, it gives them 3 months to make sure that the game is up to scratch and ready to go. And I think it could be really, really interesting. Now, again, this is just my copium, right? I want to move to Champions as soon as possible. Regulation F is something we've already done for, 4 months in the past, right? So I'm not super duper excited to move back to it. But I am just excited, I guess, to have a new format to play, right? So yeah, it kind of sucks. It is what it is, but I did want to mention it because I do think it is important to mention, right? Just because, again, you see this date here, it doesn't line up. We have this format essentially for another 2 months at this point. At that point, we're going to be another month into Regulation F. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see, I guess, if they actually do pull it out and kind of, yeah, to see where it goes. And one other thing as well, I just realized that I kind of wanted to mention with this as well. Obviously, we know that this tournament this format takes over as of December 1st. But if you do look through this list, it was something I forgot to mention before. You'll notice we actually don't have any tournaments in December. Which is kind of where I was getting this whole idea of like, oh my god, like Champions for January, like is Champions like a chance? It's probably not, but like it is really weird that this is going to be the officials as of like December 1st, but like our first, like if you have a look around, like we look at our January's, what, January 24th, January 24th, January 18th. I know Auckland as well was like January 24th. So it's like, we're going to have this format for like 7 weeks without an actual tournament, which is really interesting. Obviously, locals will be played on it. So like if you are someone who plays locals, was there one GC? I think there's like one GC in January, right? I've already mentioned it, I know. Where are we? God, where is it? Am I crazy? Am I missing it? It's a Victory Road event. Yeah, here it is. Yeah. So we know there's one for January. So we don't know when in Jan. That could be early Jan, it could be late Jan. But yeah, so like it's weird. We're gonna have this like Regulation F format for like 7 weeks without anything official, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, anyway, guys, that's probably gonna be for this one. I just wanted to have a little ramble and kind of talk about the format. And yeah, I'm personally excited to jump back into this format. I probably won't be touching it for the rest of this month. I will probably like focus on ZA at least for like another 2 to 4 weeks, and then we'll kind of see where things start to develop from there. I do like plan to keep playing VGC in the background, but I don't know, I think VGC content right now is a little stale, at least with like Regulation H kind of wrapping up and without me having any events to prep for, at least on Regulation H. So we'll kind of see how things go over the next couple of weeks. And personally, I'm just excited to jump back into more VGC content. It does suck it's not going to be on Champions, at least not for, the next couple of months. But yeah, regardless, I'm super excited to jump back in. So yeah, if you're someone who watches me, I guess, for the VGC content, yeah, it's probably still like another 2 to 4 weeks away. I probably will dabble in a little bit of Reg F on the side, and then essentially when the ladder, I guess, is up, we'll jump back in. But yeah, anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for this one. Oh, actually, and before I wrap up too, I apologize about the voice. I'm sure I don't sound the best. For anyone who I guess didn't realize, I've been sick for last week and my voice is kind of going. But yeah, that is what it is. No point in crying about it now. But yeah, I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.